All right, cool.
There we go. All right. So I think probably our best thing to do is like to hit the characters and talk, and then like relate it to the players. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't need to be like the longest episode if we run out. This will just be a fun,
just episode. Back and forth, right?
Right. Well, all right, of course. We'll mention, of course, spoiler alert before. If you haven't watched Game of Thrones, if you're only on season 2 or 3, stop listening.
Right, exactly. Because I'm not editing out anything.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Pack a Day podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today on a special episode of the Pack a Day podcast with myself. I am Lord Daniel of House Kotnick, and my partner is Lord Chris of House Schimmel. Lord Chris, Valor Morgulis, how are you?
Vala Doharis. Very, very good. I can't wait. Finally, the wait is over, and we are being rewarded with the final 6 episodes of Game of Thrones coming out next month.
Yes, it's going to be very, very good. And I figured this is probably the best time to do this on the podcast before we do our super, super deep dive into everything draft, everything. Right. So I feel like this is the best way because obviously I believe it's April. Is it April 21st, April 17th? I think is when the when the
on a Sunday.
Yeah, it's on a Sunday, as all major events should be. The newest season, the last season of Game of Thrones premiering. And this is an idea that we've kicked around for a little bit, and we thought it'd be just a fun way to kind of break up the off-season blues a little bit and talk about Game of Thrones and or the characters, how they relate to players that we know, especially on the Packers. I think we've opened it up to kind of anyone NFL if we like. But I think, at least for me, I kind of focused on Packers, or tried to keep it Packers as much as possible. I think we were kind of, I think the good thing with this, Chris, is it's kind of open to really however we want to interpret it. Anything in Game of Thrones kind of should be, different theories, different ideas behind it. So, I'm very excited for this.
Oh, yeah, it's our show. We can make any comparisons we want.
Right.
That's the beauty of it all. And also, just a warning for any spoilers out there, if you haven't been caught up on the show or you haven't seen it, highly recommend you turn it off right now because we are going to be talking a little bit about some spoilers. It's inevitable.
Yeah. And honestly, at this point, if you haven't watched Game of Thrones yet, I don't know how you haven't been spoiled already with some of this stuff.
Of course, yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, should we just start right at the top with the man, the myth, the legend, Jon Snow?
All right. Well, if you're going to compare, to me, if you just not just the Packers, but just the entire NFL.
Okay.
I, of course, have Aaron Rodgers as Jon Snow, King of the North.
Yeah, that's
no question about it. Jon Snow and his Valyrian steel blade is like Aaron Rodgers' arm.
I appreciate, and that's so, it fits so well that it's hard to pick something else. I tried to move away from that, so mine might be a little bit of a stretch. I went Matt LaFleur as Jon Snow. A new up and comer that's now having to take charge, maybe a little bit before his time, knows what he doesn't know, and kind of reaches out to others to manage what he can't. He's very open to making things work and bringing harmony to a situation where there's been less.
Well, then that brings the follow-up question. And then who's Aaron Rodgers in your Game of Thrones universe?
Well, I think the next one down on our list probably answers that, because I think the next one we have to go is the Khaleesi herself, Daenerys Targaryen, and
that's tough.
And
come on, Aaron Rodgers is better than Daenerys. Give me a break.
I know, and I think maybe I might have been forcing the issue because I know that that's Aaron Rodgers' favorite character on Game of Thrones, but for me, it's the whole aspect of he's doing things that we've never seen before, and he's just got this incredible potential that we say only Aaron Rodgers can be doing these things. And Daenerys is the only person that's bringing dragons up in this. So that's how I kind of relate it. And again, like I said, a little bit of a stretch. Maybe I kind of forced it in there a little bit, but maybe I was just trying to do a service.
I understand where you're coming from, but right now I'm going to be unfortunately, I can't believe I'm saying this, I will be the Skip Bayless to your Stephen A. Smith and say that Daenerys is overrated. Overrated. She has very little accomplishments besides hatching dragons that she did on accident.
But if her accomplishment is hatching dragons, that's got to count for like a lot more than anything else, right?
Yeah, but you know, one thing, honest question that drives me nuts is that, of course, it's gone through. I've read the book so many times, and so the show's gone beyond the books. And there was a time, I think it was in season 5, where she lost control of her dragons.
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't control them. Then all of a sudden, it's like no big deal. So I'm just wondering, like, how all of a sudden it just clicked like that. Hopefully, Matt LaFleur and Rodgers click just like that out of nowhere. They just click, and then hopefully they'll take over, regain Westeros. Like the Packers will not only regain the NFC North, but the whole NFC, and then hopefully the entire league. So that's on the next on the to-do list. So
is that who you have as Daenerys, as Coach Matt LaFleur?
If Matt, that makes a good point, because then Aaron Rodgers is definitely Jon Snow, or he's a mix of Jon Snow and the dragons. You know what I mean? So yeah, I will do that. I'll make Matt LaFleur Daenerys. Of course, my girlfriend and all the other girls are obsessed with Matt LaFleur, the same way that a lot of guys are obsessed with Daenerys. So
yeah,
I think those fit in. Now, I made a whole list of comparing these guys before. I mean, I've been doing this for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I originally had, the character Edison Tollett? Probably don't. He's now the new Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Jon Snow's best friend.
Yes.
I had Jordy Nelson as him, because I thought Rodgers is Jon Snow, he'll be Jordy Nelson. And then Gren and Pip I had as Eddie Lacy and Randall Cobb. And of course, sorry people, spoiler alert, they're dead. And Lacey's gone and Cobb's soon going to be gone. So that kind of fits right in again.
I like that.
And then, of course, Tormund Giantsbane, the great Tormund with the big beard.
Yeah.
I originally had Josh Sitton as Tormund. But of course, now Sitton's gone, so I need to think of somebody who would be Tormund.
That's a tough one. And because like the first one you would kind of go to, at least personality wise, is Bakhtiari. But
okay.
But I mean, he almost has to be Khal Drogo, right?
I feel Bakhtiari, if Rodgers is Jon Snow, for me, Bakhtiari has to be somewhere in the north. But yeah, I could totally see like a hybrid of Khal Drogo and Tormund Giantsbane. Yeah. And then of course that makes it all more for you that Rodgers is Daenerys.
So on a lot of my other ones, I took a little personal liberty, and so like a lot of my other options I didn't kind of like connect interlockingly, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So how about let's look at the rest of the Stark family. I think honestly, but this one I think almost kind of fits too. Ned Stark, the Sean Bean himself. That's got to be Mike McCarthy, right?
Absolutely. They both lost their heads because they're so stubborn, and they're so Ned Stark was so God, I can't think of the right word. He's too honorable.
Yeah.
McCarthy's so honorable to his game plan that he refuses to change anything.
They're loyal to the old ways, and they don't want to change.
Yes. They don't want to change. Yes.
Yeah.
Gods. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And then originally, Mike McCarthy's Ned Stark. Originally, I had Mike McCarthy as G.R. Mormont, who was the original Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Who took Jon Snow under his wing. Mm-hmm. He later gets assassinated. But yeah, McCarthy would definitely be the Ned Stark.
Now, for Lady Stark, Catelyn Stark, this one's going to be kind of interesting. I struggled with this one.
Okay, go ahead. I think I already know.
I went Dom Capers. He's had to sit there and watch so many of the players that he loves just be struck down by injury, and he's tried every different thing to make things work, but usually everything he tries to do ends up backfiring and getting everyone he knows killed.
Yes, I completely understand. And then, of course, people don't know this, but in the books, spoiler, of course, have you read the books?
I have not read the books.
Well, in the books, she comes back to life as Lady Stoneheart, and she seeks revenge on the people who killed her and her family. And, of course, because she died getting her throat slit, she can't talk. So it's like a zombie. And I do not see Dom Capers coming back. So I think it was a good decision on the show not to bring her back. That's kind of weird.
Agreed.
But I think it would be good if Dom Capers stays hidden for a while until we forgive him, because I do give him a lot of credit for helping the Packers win that Super Bowl. Now, I have one for you.
Okay.
I'm going to go a little bit away from the Starks.
Okay.
I'm going to go to the King's Small Council. Varys, the Master of Whispers.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think? And this has nothing to do with necessarily the NFL or the league.
So I didn't plan this one out ahead of time because that one was I was running low on time. I didn't have time to think about this one.
That's why this is fun.
But if we're going outside of just players and the NFL strictly,
you're going to get this. Come on.
It's got to be Adam Schefter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Adam Schefter is the Varys. He has his little birds everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And then even taking it a little bit further and going way outside of the league, you all remember Alliser Thorne.
Mm-hmm.
Huge jerk. I have him as Skip Bayless because Aaron Rodgers is Jon Snow. And then Janos Slynt. Remember Janos Slynt?
Yeah.
I have Colin Cowherd as him. They both hated Jon Snow, and they both hate Aaron Rodgers, and they're both just obnoxious. I think that fits it. And then because they kind of look alike and they just have the face that I want to punch, I have Peter Baelish with Pete Carroll.
They do look, yeah. Pete Carroll could definitely be Peter Baelish.
Yes. There's a sneaky, cunning little rat about him, you know?
Now this, I went inside the Packers for Mr. Baelish because I really almost kind of fell in love with the Baelish character. Like a weird part of me, I don't know.
So creepy. He talks like this. He prolongs.
Because chaos is a ladder.
Yes. Except for the Packers this year, chaos was not. I mean, it could be a ladder in the long run, if
yes,
it gets better and better. But
and this one actually came from our own Packers Pack-A-Day podcast staff. Peter Baelish is Russ Ball, handling all the money. You know what I mean? And kind of
rub two coins together and make a third.
And also kind of think about it when Ted Thompson was kind of on the way out those last couple of years. People were saying that Russ Ball was kind of the one making a lot of those decisions behind the scenes, you know, pulling strings that weren't, out in the open a little bit, kind of like what Littlefinger likes to do.
Yeah.
So what about the Lannisters? Let's talk about the Lannisters because I think there'll be some fun ones.
Okay. Now, the first one I have to say is, please, I know a lot of people are going to say Tom Brady is like Jaime Lannister, the pretty boy. And I said no, because let's be honest, Brady's better than Jaime Lannister.
Right.
By far. So the Jaime Lannister one to me is pretty difficult. But Tyrion, I have Tyrion as Bill Belichick.
I like that. And I think it kind of it mimics kind of where I went with it because, again, I tried to stay Packers, so I went Mike Pettin, staying up in the booth, out of the fray of everything, but still trying to execute different clever things to get his scheme to work.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So who did you go with, Jaime, then?
Jamie, I really, for the Packer wise, for Jamie Lannister, for the Packers, I would probably go right now. I know this sounds a little crazy, but I might go with Clay Matthews.
That's what I had.
Because Jamie Lannister, of course, spoiler, he loses his sword hand, and that destroys him. Matthews basically lost he actually lost his pass rushing hand a couple times. Remember, he broke his thumb in 2013, and now he just doesn't really have it anymore. And, of course, Jamie loses his nice locks, the Prince Charming locks he had in season 1. But, yeah, I'd go with Clay Matthews.
And that's what I went to. But, honestly, when you actually said about losing his hand and Clay Matthews, Nick Perry works in there, too. Well, all the times that he breaks his hand and has to wear that big club.
Yes.
What about
the golden hand that Jamie uses?
Yeah, that's what we give him next time.
Yeah.
What about Cersei at the top of the Lannister clan?
I'm ashamed to admit it. I couldn't. I didn't think of Cersei.
Okay. I went Mark Murphy. Currently sitting in charge of everything.
Cersei's fun to look at least.
I mean, she's technically on the Iron Throne right now. So, she's in charge of everything. And Mark Murphy, he's got Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst answering to him. So he's kind of the one in charge.
Yeah. It's kind of like, in Game of Thrones, if you were a common citizen, you wouldn't really know who's actually pulling the strings.
Right.
It's kind of like us. We don't really know who's pulling the strings. How much that's a problem a lot of people have is they don't know how much power each guy has. They don't really know who's making the final decision. So this is a little Game of Thrones. You don't really know who's the master of the game.
Especially like early on, like when Joffrey first kind of became king, and there's that huge struggle between like him and Tyrion and Cersei, like all trying to play again. And obviously Littlefinger was still there. They're all trying to play against each other. And
that is one reason why I liked having Tyrion, if you go outside the Packers, as a Bill Belichick, because Tyrion got so much criticism, and everybody in King's Landing thought that he was to blame. He was whispering in Joffrey's ear what to do.
Right.
I think Bill Belichick gets a little bit of a bad rep that I don't think he necessarily deserves because he's so good.
I agree. Here's a fun one. Do you have anybody for Joffrey?
For the Packers, Joffrey. Right now, if I could think of anybody, because he's just been in the news lately, is Johnny Manziel.
That's a really good one. I like that.
Because I've seen he was all over social media today, and I thought Game of Thrones, yeah, that's Joffrey right there. But Packer-wise, thank God that we don't. This should be difficult because you don't want your team to have a Joffrey.
Right. Exactly.
So this should be the fact that this is a difficult decision is a good thing.
Do you want to hear mine? Because I literally when I made this connection in my head, I spent like a good 20 minutes laughing to myself just quietly every time I thought about it.
Is it player or coaching staff?
Coaching staff.
Coaching staff. Oh, is it Zook?
Yeah, it's Ron Zook.
Yes.
If there's anybody that's Joffrey, it's Ron mother-loving Zook. Everybody hates him.
Incompetent.
And he's dead.
Incompetent. Yes.
One more that I also threw out there that was fun, and this is like because he's a bit of a player in the game, but doesn't get as much as Tommen Lannister. I threw out J.K. Scott.
Technically.
That's right. Yes, technically, Baratheon. I threw out J.K. Scott just because they're both super young and they look like kids.
Oh yeah, J.K. Scott looks like a guy who won like a game show that he got to be on an NFL team for a day. I mean, seriously, he looks like that.
He looks like the creative player you make in Madden.
Well, not just that. Like you watch him like stand there. Of course, the punters stand there all awkwardly, ready to get the ball, and you see his arms, and his arms are like little tiny twigs. It's like, man, that guy looks like a high school punter can go out there and look just like him.
Exactly.
And I'm gonna throw out just some random fun ones.
Hit me.
Okay. Roose Bolton. Who do you have as Bruce Bolton?
Oh.
You can go outside the Packers if you would like, because I went outside the Packers. And think of it this way: House Bolton, arch enemies with House Stark. Which
Right.
I thought of. House Stark is like the Packers. So
Right.
House Bolton is like
The Bears.
And so who do I have as Bruce Bolton?
Oh, I can't remember I want to go the coach's name, but I can't remember. Is it the coach or is it
No.
Trubisky?
No,
Hit
I
me.
had Jay Cutler. Think about it, because Bruce Bolton wants to stab Rob Stark in the back. I can totally see Jay Cutler doing that to Rodgers.
That's true. And also Bruce Bolton he takes kind of this laissez-faire attitude towards revenge. He pretty much just lets Ramsey kind of do whatever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a good one. I like that a lot.
And then another one I just threw out there, Beric Dondarrion, the guy with the eye patch, and he gets brought back to life over and over again. He's been brought back like 7 times. I have him as Brett Favre, guy who doesn't die. He just keeps coming back and coming back.
That's a good one.
Back.
I like that. What about Matt Flynn? Just keeps making his way back in.
Matt Flynn is Podrick Payne. Brienne and Tyrion Squire.
Yeah.
He's always going to be the Squire. He's never going to be a knight, a legitimate starting quarterback. That's Matt Flynn.
And no matter how you treat him, obviously he doesn't have the utmost, no one really respects him a ton, and he's still just going to keep staying. He's going to stay there with you the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here's what I liked, and it might just because I really like her character. Yara Greyjoy. Queen.
Those characters that disappeared for a couple seasons and then came back. But
came back with a vengeance.
Her name's actually Osha or Asha
book?
in the books. They changed her name because there was already another character named Osha or Asha. And so
I think
there's one character's name was Osha, and then she was Asha. So they decided that's too similar. We're going to call her Yara.
I like that. So I gave Yara Greyjoy to Devontae Adams. So
okay, explain your reasoning for that.
So Devontae Adams had to wait behind an older member to take over the number 1 position. Obviously, Yara had to wait for Euron to die and to take over that role. And even now that he has basically the rightful claim to it, people don't really give that wide receiver group for Green Bay a ton of credit just because of how kind of down the offense has been the last couple of years. And so, there's not really much respect for him being the number 1 wide receiver in that group. And also people want to bring in a usurper to the throne in Antonio Brown to take over the number 1 role and rule the Iron Islands. And so I thought that was just a fun way. And I really want to do Yara because I really like her character. And I think that she's going to do more, at least in the show, the next season or so. So that's why I went with Devontae Adams.
Okay. Well, also, spoiler alert, people, plug your ears if you haven't seen the last season. She's, of course, is captured.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, her uncle captured her, and now she's in Cersei. So hopefully Devontae Adams does not get captured.
Yeah. How about Melisandre? Do you have anybody for Melisandre?
Melisandre. Somebody who is actually really, really, really old, but looks young, who Melisandre, that's tough. I can't really see a player being Melisandre. Who do you have?
So I went Mason Crosby. An old can still make magic happen at times, but he's definitely much older than. I mean, it seems like he's been around forever, but still, I can never think of Mason Crosby as being this silver fox that he's become now. I still see him as that young guy.
Yeah, I know. Mason Crosby would not burn a little girl.
No.
At
least we would hope so.
Yeah, maybe that game where he missed 4x. That was that. He has to redeem himself. Yeah. Let me think of another guy. I have Peyton Manning as Barristan Selmy.
Okay.
People think they're old and washed up, but they still prove that they had a ton left in them.
That's good. How about Samwell Tarly?
Oh, Samwell Tarly. I have Samwell Tarly, Corey Linsley.
Good. I like that one. I like that.
You know, he's Jon Snow's sidekick. Corey Linsley is Roger's sidekick. They kind of even look alike.
I was gonna say they almost look the same. Yeah.
They're innocent, you know. Yeah. Corey Linsley by far.
So I mean that's a good one. It's probably better than the one I thought of, but that's because I made Corey Linsley Hodor, because he anchors that line. He holds the door. You know, he doesn't have a ton of personality about him. He's just the guy in the middle that holds the door. So for Samwell, I went Blake Martinez. Went to Stanford, so he's a smart guy, educated, just like Samwell, and you know he is in charge of the defense. He's got kind of a leadership role, kind of like what Samwell had at times, but he just never seems like he's actually really in charge. Just because I feel like when I think of the defense, yeah, I think of Blake Martinez as the de facto leader because he's that middle linebacker. But still, at the same time, he doesn't have that commanding personality like a Charles Woodson kind of had when he ran the defense. You know?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, Hodor. Yeah, I would be more Linsley than anybody else. I can't really think of who else would be Hodor. Has to be an offensive lineman.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I want to end.
Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna say, Bulaga. Bulaga is my Hodor.
I like that. I went. If you want my Bulaga, I went Jorah Mormont as
Really?
yeah.
Oh, why? Because the right tackle doesn't get any of the love. The left tackle
doesn't get as much as the love. He's been dealing with injuries. He still keeps coming back to help Aaron Rodgers, but he's just not gonna be the number one.
He's friend zoned.
Friend zoned, exactly. So I think the one that we haven't touched yet, and it's kind of the elephant in the room, the undead, blue-eyed elephant in the room, is the Night King. Who is he?
Roger Goodell.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad that you agreed. It can't be anybody else.
Yes. Has to be Roger Goodell and his army of White Walkers.
Well, that I thought that was fun. That was a ton of fun,
well,
Chris.
You know, in NFL.com, they did like some of these where they would compare Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. It's about time, they have to do something with Game of Thrones.
Yeah, and especially now that this is the end of the season. This is the end of the run, and we don't get a lot of shows like this where a last season of a show becomes a must-see event, and especially not like this where the episodes they're saying are going to be almost 2 hours long.
Well, there's only going to be 6 left, so it's going to be like a mini movie,
right?
Each one, and it's like you don't want it to end though, you know.
So before we go, Chris, one final question: your take? Who ends up on the Iron Throne at the end? Who is the winner of the Game of Thrones?
You know what I really hope happens is that they realize that a monarchy sucks, and they think, let's set up a republic or something like that. Because this whole monarchy doesn't seem to work.
Right.
But I'm going to have to go with if you have to tell me I have to pick somebody, I'd go with Jon Snow.
You're right. That ending of getting rid of the monarchy as a whole makes sense because it hasn't worked, and really, it almost kind of like placates everybody because Jon Snow stands are going to be upset if it's Daenerys, and vice versa. Like, people are going to be mad almost either any way it's going to end. An interesting theory that I heard, and I almost kind of would like to see it just to see how it works, is that the Night King ends up as the person on the Iron Throne and basically takes over, and everybody else leaves and goes back across the sea, and that's where they and so basically you kind of like now you've separated everybody, by the sea, and it kind of ends the threat, which is a logical conclusion if you think about it. Like, let's get the hell away from where all these.
So in your version, the White Walkers win.
I mean, I guess it depends on how you think about the word win. I mean, if it's whoever ends up on the throne, then yeah, they technically win. But I mean, if everybody lives and just bolts over to the other side, I mean, it's basically just like, if we left planet Earth and just, flew over to Mars.
So that means, though, that the Night King somehow succeeds against Daenerys' dragons. That would be very interesting to see.
Well, he does have his own dragon now.
He does, but Daenerys has two, and Drogon's the bigger one. So we'll see what happens. That's going to be awesome.
It's going to be an event, and I'm very excited to see how it ends. And I'm really happy that we got to do this because it was a ton of fun, and I'm glad that I was able to mix my my Game of Thrones nerd culture with my Packers football nerd culture and meld them into a beautiful baby that I'll raise to be the leader of Westeros one day.
Yeah, the nerds will rule the world.
Exactly. Well, for my partner Chris, you can follow him on Twitter at Chris Schimmel. You can follow myself, DK all the way. Tweet at us, let you know what you thought of our ideas. I would absolutely love to hear what everybody else's thoughts and ideas and picks were, because I mean that's what this is all about, is just a lively discussion about basically like I mean, it's just whatever you want. So I want to hear what everybody says. So I hope you tweet at us, and obviously also stick with us on the Pack a Day podcast. Make sure you rate, subscribe, review, stick around the rest of the next couple upcoming months, because it's going to be actual football talk, not me and Chris's outside the box stuff, which I think is fun, but.
It's going to give you something special.
But there's going to be real actual Packers things coming up down the line that you want to make sure you stick around for. So, again, I hope you stick around with us. And so for my partner, Chris Daconic, saying, like we started, Valor Morgulis.
Valor Dohaeris.
Nice. That was – I am so glad we did this.
Yeah.
That was so awesome. I literally for like the past couple months, I've been like looking at the schedule and seeing, all right, what's like the closest day to the beginning of the series that we could do this. Like I want to make it like a huge, big event and, and do it. And then when he put out the list of like, he basically like gave us stuff like the first like couple weeks of April. I'm like, well, shit, like there's not going to be any time to fit it in. And then when you brought it up, I was like, yes, thank God.
Yeah, because eventually it's going to be all about the draft, and we're going right back into football mode and preseason, and then we're going to be right back to more football. So it's good to have an episode in there to mix things up.
Well, and I mean, like, and two, no offense to anybody else, because everyone else, I mean, obviously does a great job with it too, but I mean, there's only so much I can say about what these different prospects and things like that. There's only so much.
There's only so much you can talk about besides, ruining it, like not ruining it, but spoiling it for people who are yet to go. It's becoming diluted.
Right. Yeah.
So satirized.
Exactly. That's why
it's good. For us doing this, I feel it gives other people in the group ammo,
Right. Because I mean, I'll be honest, like I'm not a huge draft nut. So
because I need to pay more attention to college football, but to me, I can do more draft stuff after the combine where I see numbers.
Right.
And stuff like that. And then I'll be able to calculate the numbers. Because right now you ask me who are the best pass rushers in the draft. I'm going to say I can't really name you. I can maybe list you like the top 2 or 3, but then after that, who knows?
Right. I mean, like if you give me a couple players to research, like, yeah, I'll go research them. I'll know about them, and I can do that stuff. But, if I'm just trying to bullshit 20 minutes out of, who are the top, inside linebacking prospects, like, that's going to be a disservice to everybody. I'll let everybody else do it. I'll do this fun shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll just do the fun, stupid stuff. That's just fun. We can do whatever the hell we want because it's our podcast.
Exactly. All right. Well, I'll edit this up. Obviously, I'm going to start it with the Game of Thrones music at the beginning. Yeah.
All right, cool.
So, all right. Well, we'll have to think of something else fun to do now for the next one. Something like this again.
Definitely.
Cool. All right, man.
See ya.
Take it easy.